The Undertale build is quickly coming up to its 2-year anniversary, if it's not already past it by now. Since then, we've made massive progress on the build. The ruins is almost completed, Snowdin's main landscape is close to being finished, and, in more recent times, the full mapping of the build's finally been completed, which means hopefully we're not going to modify it constantly again. And yet, despite all these things, there's still one room that hasn't seen the light of day. Yes, the pun was intended. This ruins room's a bit more special, because unlike other ones, this one's entirely made from a puzzle. AKA, a block that does not exist in Minecraft. So up until now, it's been next to impossible to design the room if we wanted it to stick to canon material. But that changes today. With the power of innovation and creativity, I've finally come up with a design that will not only look good, but will stick close enough to canon material that even Squid can't complain. Which is a very hard thing to do. I mean, this man literally spent over a month on the shape of Sans and Papyrus' house, so if that's not a good sign, I don't know what is. So if we make our way along here, we get to the room that we will be building on. Ignoring this random delta rune symbol, you can see there's a rough design idea on the floor. It's the Undertale build, not the Undertale dig. Please remember that this hole is meant to cover the entire room, but I had the idea that the floor was actually being held up by, well, I was gonna say stone, but I guess the ruins version of stone, aka the clay, or terracotta these days. Because we can't actually make blocks that you fall through in Minecraft, but what we can do is make it so you have to parkour over there, making it so it's still— oh my god, I suck at this game. Making it so it's still somewhat of a challenge to get to the other side, like in game, but it still looks quite cool and has all that, you know, ruins feel to it. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this the best, but you know what? How about you just see in the time lapse that we will be jumping into right now. So, cue the music. And thus, the new room has a foundation. I call it a foundation, but I literally only have to do detailing and then it's basically done, so... Now, in terms of the wall structure in down here, you can actually tell there's a different technique that I took to the way it was built compared to, let's say, this sort of wall. Oh wow, that looks so ugly actually. Much better. But yeah, you can sort of see that this sort of style of wall is slightly different from the ones that are up here. And the reason for that is, in the past, you can see that all the walls kind of have that similar sort of circle-ish style, and then it just kind of leads into the roof at the top. And there's nothing wrong with that when it's, you know, a small room, because it just kind of, like, it just kind of works. But take a look at it from a bigger scale, it gets pretty boring quick. And if there's a whole area filled with just this exact same type of wall, it would look, the style would get very repetitive. So not only because it's been like, I don't know, a year or two since I've worked in the ruins, so I couldn't quite remember how I built the walls, I thought I'd try to take a bit more of a different approach to make it look a bit more actually, you know, ruined instead of just a wall with a bit of crumbling in it. well, let's be honest, this room can only look so good when it's all just 2 colours. If we take a look over here, you can see that the waterfall sort of area was complete. If you take the boat, which is technically the river person's river, but we decide to add a ruins area for, and we end up in the other room. Nothing too fancy, but it definitely makes the room feel... It helps the ruins feel a lot more connected instead of just separate pieces. Also helps add to the fact it's a cave and not just a random rooms. You can see around here we're actually gonna have... I think this is the real river, because yeah, if you look at the Y height, this is the river that technically connects up to the entire game. So if we just carry on going along this, we could actually end up in Hotland. Now, before I get onto the detailing stage of this whole room, we need to take a trip to somewhere you've probably never seen in the entire Undertale build. Because as recording this, I learned that I've probably never documented this part of the build before. And because I've already made progress on it, I'm gonna have to jump to an older version of the map. So, if you'll excuse me, we're just gonna jump into a completely different version. If we fly up here, you'll notice there's kind of not a lot here. If we go by how the in-game thing's meant to work, this is meant to be the Mount Ebbot at the top. And, you know, we do intend to get round to building that eventually, but that's probably going to be the last thing we build, considering it is literally the mountain, and we can't really build that unless we've got stuff to go underneath the mountain. Now, I understand the pointlessness of this next task that we are about to do, but I personally would like a spawn area. If you fly upwards, there's kind of just this, and I want to fix that. So, I have a rough idea in mind about how I would want this spawn to be, so how about we get around to building that. And so our new spawn was made. Kind of. Okay, listen, I kind of ran out of time to build the whole thing, and I do want to get this video out before the 15th, because we have something very special planned for that, and I would like to give me some time to actually record things and get some work done. So we're going to have to abruptly cut off this build here and finish it next time. But I would say significant improvement compared to before. Plus, now you can probably get a good idea about what the vague envisionment of this spawn was going to be. See, I thought it'd be cool to have like 4 segments of the main areas of the build. So this is the ruins, this is Waterfall, this is Hotland, and this wonderful creation that I've totally completed is Snowden. So if you log in, the first thing you'll see is a brief example of what to expect from the build. But there are more things that I feel like we should talk about when it comes to Waterfall, as I don't think I've ever really talked about the plan with that. Sure, we've got the one episode where we build the rough thing, but in terms of the mapping and some of the specifics, such as the view of Monster Kid, so how about we jump to the discussion of that? But I totally didn't record like 2 months ago. So over here is where Sans blinds you with the stupid telescope thing. And if you come over here, this is where the little duckling is. And over here is where it gets a bit complicated. Because it's actually impossible to see what this entire room as a whole looks like unless you go into the room files in the game itself instead of just playing it. And a lot of things don't make sense, which is kind of why we've tried to interpret it ourselves and try to make it some circular, really just a giant, like, sort of its own separate cavern type thing compared to all the other bits, which are like just pathways and bits that I can imagine a lot of monsters just use a natural cave and carved out a lot of it. Whereas this one's a lot more open and more marshy. This is where our very professional echo flowers have been placed down. But a little detail that I found interesting that Squid didn't have, because beforehand this place was all flat and it looked kind of boring. So in the sprite work, if I pop it up on screen right now, is some parts of the water have these little beams going down deeper than others. Now it could just be that Toby has different sprites for different waters and it's probably not actual details there, but I decided, screw it, let's make it look cooler. If we lowered this bit down here, it properly connects up to the garbage dump, making it so it's all in the same room, believe it or not. I know Undertale doesn't make it look like that, but this entire room is connected, so this garbage bit and kind of the onion sand thing, it's technically just right next to the camera, but it is all completely connected in the one main area.
One more thing. We're now in 1.18, which means
Oh
we can
yeah,
go down. And this is perfect because this is where Alphys meets Undyne, is right here. And Alphys is about to plunge into the void below, so we needed a void below.
but there was a little problem with that before because, well, if you look at the Y level that I just put on screen now,
something about the bedrock, yeah.
yeah, and we could break the bedrock, but like I'd also like to have like a huge cavern wall cliff here going into the abyss. I think that would be really cool.
Having just the end of all things.
Yeah,
like,
just like a couple
weird.
waterfalls going there and just dropping down and oh! just dropping down into nothing like I just did.
So the duck right here, the duck, is terrible because if you follow the game, you go to the right for like 12 miles and then you pop up like right where you were earlier. So that duck basically bends space and time. So my solution was to bend most of the walk you do with Monster Kid in like a circle, because it's a fairly uninteresting walk anyway, which eventually leads to us plunging into the garbage dump from above. But this also meant something else, because I don't know if you remember, but towards the end of the Monster Kid walk, you get a view to the castle.
Yeah, so basically, in Waterfall, not only is the pathway that Monster Kid makes you walk on no sense structure-wise for caves, the castle view is meant to look at New Home. And fun little fact about New Home, it's at the other end of the game. The very end. So connecting these two caverns is not an easy deal, because, I mean, we could be boring and just make a fake castle that looks like the same thing, and then have the actual New Home completely different in another cavern. But we don't do that here. We go over the top, and we make sure that we never sleep. So, with Squid's incredible mapping abilities, we have decided to make it all one cavern. So, if you look at the back bit here, which will probably extend backwards a bit, this is Waterfall, this hideous golden structure thing is the Judgment Hall. The actual Judgment Hall. As if you were to walk the entire game, get to Judgment Hall, look out the window, you will see Waterfall. And you might be thinking, but wait, how are you supposed to build that in giant cave? How big does that make it? Well, if you look at this entire stone ring that literally cannot render because it's so big and we haven't even finished placing.
Yeah, New Home is pretty big.
And we are placing it all by hand.
Alright, so we basically wanted a really cool area for the Undyne the Undying fight, bridge slash thing. And I had this really crazy idea that we make the drop below it exactly mathematically correct. So basically I timed the amount of time it took Undyne to fall, and then stuck it into a few equations to find out exactly how long it would take to drop, and it turns out it's this far. So yeah,
basically,
rude.
Yeah, if you decide I don't want to save Monster Kid, Undyne literally saves someone from being dusted.
You are a monster for not saving Monster Kid. Look at that drop.
Do you want that upon someone? Actually, don't answer that. I don't want to hear if there's any murderers.
Yeah, I'd rather be blissfully ignorant that my chat are psychopaths. This, I think I talked about this in episode 1, like ages ago.
I can't even
But
remember your episode 1.
But basically, there's a bend here that isn't a bend. You never see the turn. You just go up out of the screen, and then you're walking right on the next screen. So I said, hang on a minute. What if we rotate the entire build after this by 90 degrees? And funnily enough, that puts New Home right next to Waterfall, where we want it. We've been playing about with a few designs. We're trying to come up with a cool gradient. This is Doge's brainchild.
Oh, I forgot it glows as well.
Yeah, if you do it like midnight, the cracks will glow as well.
See, I like to picture it as like, if you look at magma textures, or technically lava. Yeah, I kind of tried to mimic that sort of thing where there's like cracks going through it, texture-wise, and it was like glowing. So, yeah, obviously it's stone, so it doesn't actually do that. But for coolness factor, that's where I got the idea.
And then I did a bit of a kind of trying out a path design over here. Nothing too serious, just trying to make something. And I have to kill my dog again.
I'm not sure if I should clarify if he's joking, but at this point I'm not sure if he is. Okay, I don't know if I have a transition for the scene that I'm recording right now, but since the last recording of the Hotland area at the end of Waterfall, there has already been some major changes. So I'm going to have to re-record this segment because I want to cover the new version of this map instead of be like, oh, this is what we're doing, and then immediately just contradict ourselves in like 5 seconds. So, round number 2. First of all, the mapping has been slightly adjusted, so this goes lower down. Before, this was quite high up, and this was quite substantially down. We've changed it so this is this height, and it slowly goes upwards instead of just a huge drop or one staircase going down. So, a bit more natural. One of the biggest things you've probably noticed is the temporary walls around the place. This is actually because we plan to separate Hotland into 2 different caverns. So if you see in game, once you get around to the bit over here, there's a doorway opening up to the next area in the game where you get the really cool Hotland view. So to summarise, Hotland will be separated into 2 caverns, the one with the lab and the waterfall bit, and the actual big view where the core is. You will find that we have made the 3rd level of Hotland above both of the caverns. Now, the reason we did this is because if you look to in-game, the 3rd level is a very different style to the 1st and 2nd. So the 1st and 2nd are more of the caverny look with all the orange rocks, whereas the 3rd one is a lot more tech-heavy and industrialized, if that makes sense. It also gives us the great view of the core if you go to the end of the hotel. It also gives you the view of the hotel going to the core. Oh my god, I can't speak. Making this a separate cavern actually... Oh my god. Making this the 3rd cavern... No, having the 3rd floor at the top of the cavern makes the Hotland... Or... This makes it so the hotel view going to the core... Oh my god, how do I explain the bridge? The bridge view is explained by it not being visible because it's at the other cavern. Please tell me that makes sense. You can't see the bridge because it's on a 3rd... It's at the top of the cavern, explaining why these are 2 different views. This gives us a dramatic core view, thus explaining why you can't see the bridge from down here, but you can from up there. I'm gonna cut away now because I can't be bothered explaining anymore. Okay, cutting in here, I just remembered there's something quite important that I wanted to say, but luckily I recorded this clip for a Squids video a few weeks ago, so I'm just gonna casually insert this clip here that I recorded then, but keep in mind that the due date is no longer September the 1st, but probably more likely the end of the month, or just at some point, because it really just depends to when I get round to it, and currently I've not even started any of the builds, so all submissions are free game. You'll know what I'm on about in a second. A lot of people have been wondering how on earth we're supposed to finish this entire build in at least the next decade. And, due to my extensive research, I have found out that there's a few options available. If you take a look at our snowed-in mapping thingy-majiggy, you may notice that there's this entire other section of the build that you don't see in-game. Well, I thought that was the perfect opportunity to let the community build the area. Totally not because we're lazy. If you head down into the description below and find the Discord link, you will find the rules on how to submit your own build. And if we get enough submissions, your build may be featured in the official build. God, that is too much time to say build. Anyway, I should probably hurry up and leave because Squid's probably gonna yell at me for being over 30 seconds of this video. So, subscribe! So, to jump back into what this video was initially the primary focus, let's get to detailing this room, because we have built the main structure of the walls and stuff, but we haven't detailed it yet. And I know I'm saying this when it's literally not built yet, but I'm recording this as an older version because I can't actually get the server to turn on where the build is, so I'm just gonna record this segment here. We'll just go to the time lapse and go. I am completely out of time to build this room. Now luckily, the only things that I need to do in this room is add the lights, just some branches on here, leaves down there, just some extra detailing such as like vines and stuff. But as a whole, I'd say this build area is basically complete. We've got our nice little waterfall connecting the two rooms. We've got whatever this is, I just think it looks cool. We've got the little garden area for monsters to come visit because, you know, they need some life. Rough pathway that you're technically meant to fall down, but we've just taken some innovation and you fall down if you, well, if you fall. And yeah, I'd say all in all, this room was a complete success. I also love that this area here connects up to the other room right next to it. If you imagine this is the save point area, if you come up here, mind the gap as you're jumping, and you make your way towards this room. For sure, you can go the normal way you go through in-game, but you kind of only end up down here, and it'd be nice to get up there somehow. Suppose you could just swim up the water here, and end up there. But, you know, I doubt much people will do that. This next footage is something that I've been wanting to record for the last month or two. But due to my own building limitations, I was never quite sure how to execute the build, which meant I kept, you know, putting it off. But because of Undertale's 7th anniversary coming up and the special video we're planning to make on the 15th, I'll have to showcase and upload this video before then, even if I don't finish that build. For those of you who don't already know, on July 1st, it was announced that Technoblade had passed away. Now, I never knew him personally, but the news still, you know, hit quite hard, as I'm sure it did for a lot of people. He was one of my biggest inspirations for content creation, so to hear that he had passed away, I feel like it's right to make a tribute. The Undertale build is one of, if not, the biggest project I've ever worked on. Basically my love letter to Minecraft and Undertale all in the one project. And thanks to the lack of restraints, it means I can make a build dedicated to techno, forever immortalized in the world that is most important to me. So, for one final time today, let's start a time lapse.
And I only wake up in my dreams. I've been sleeping all day long, stuck inside these walls. Ooh, I know that there's something more, a story worth living for, even better than a fairy tale. I wanna run as far as I can go, wanna feel like I'm more than a shadow, wanna get to to the part where I know. Ooh, oh yeah. And someday I'll tell you my story of triumph and tears, how I conquered my fears.